Hello, loves. Your girl Kerie here. Today's subject is, I'm going to be honest, it makes me emotional. And I'm going to do my best to practice what I preach. And I know that I always tell you guys to be spiritually fed, be in your spirit, know, that God's got us, and don't allow the outside ignorance and so forth to become a reflection of our character. So I'm going to do my best to be spiritually led through this and not, spiritually fed through this and not emotionally led, just like I advise you guys to. And with that being said, today's topic is on reactive abuse. And again, this is me coming to you as a survivor of narcissistic abuse. This is for informational purposes only. If you feel that you are threatened or in any endangerment, especially abuse, please seek help. Go to your local domestic shelter, call 911, whatever you need to do, but don't allow this to be anything but informational. Another thing I'll add is that this is a very controversial subject, so I think that's also why it's emotional for me, because I have been in these shoes. So for me, I see it in a different light than some people. However, I'm coming at you with my authenticity, and we're going to talk about this. Reactive abuse for myself, the way I look at it is one of the most damaging and misunderstood terms in the entire narcissistic recovery space. And I say this because it literally takes away from the sustained pattern of abuse, because remember I had stated to you guys that abuse is a pattern. It happens more than once, and it places the shift to kind of distort reality. It takes the prolonged pattern of abuse, of the manipulation, of the psychological pressure, and it puts the visibility on the one-time reaction. And that's what a judge is to base a context and base an entire situation off of and give a response to. What people fail to understand is that by the time the victim gets to a point that they react in such an out of character experience or situation, they have already endured so much long sequential events of being provoked, being antagonized, being repeatedly invalidated, gaslit, dismissed. I mean, they have literally had their whole entire reality changed over and over and over again, and questioned. And now, if you remember in my previous videos how I said that chronic stress keeps your amygdala open because you have constant cortisol running through your body. So now when they perform and they set you up, the narcissist sets you up to do this reactive abuse that they stage, to basically shift perception from themselves to the victim, you are not coming from a state of calmness and logical thinking. You are coming at this whole situation and you're reacting and operating from a state of response, of a threat response from your amygdala. So you are not going to have a reply that is of logical thinking or problem solving, for that matter. And now once they place this reactive abuse scenario on you, that is where this whole term, the damage is done by this whole entire term, because it's becoming very real. It's basically taking everything that happened before that and letting it disappear from the narrative, because now the focus and the shift is on you. Oftentimes when this happens, the victim now starts to blame themselves. They start to feel that they're the abuser. They start, beating themselves up and doing so much self-sabotaging. And I want you to understand, this was not accidental. In many cases, this is all part of them gaining their control back. You see, most people that go through extreme stress, dynamics of abuse, they don't record and tape everything, because when the narcissist provokes their abuse, it's, you never know what time of day they're going to do it, because they're hot and cold. So you don't really have your camera ready, and, you're just on a mission to, record every abuse that they do. But for the abuser, they do. They have their phone camera ready, or they even have a staged camera in their home or the place where they're going to, set this whole thing up. They'll turn off any outside cameras, things that maybe when there's an initial reaction, someone's like, why you keep calling me? Or why did you call me here? Like if they say something like that would get them caught, magically they'll turn those cameras off or have no internet access to the physical cameras outside, so that they can basically stage and edit and put into context the true abuse that they're doing, to put it into a context where you are wearing the abuser shoe and not them. This is usually the time that the victim has like their rock bottom, basically. I mean, for myself, this was my rock bottom, but I want to tell you that it was also the wake up call that I needed. This was like cutting the head off the snake that I kept going back in, hoping that it wouldn't bite me again. I needed to physically go to jail, have this staged event so that I looked like I was this abusive person. I went through 19 months of court to state my case, and the domestic violence and the trackers and all that I had. And here I was sitting on the hot seat because the roles reversed, and it made me look like I was presenting myself as this victim, and here I went and I was the abuser, and it was all a big scam, and it was really me. Like, you have to, like I said, it dismisses almost everything that happened prior to that, and now you are in this hot seat. But I truly feel that it was a gift from God, because if I did not go to jail and I did not sit in that jail for 4 days, because he did it on a holiday weekend too, knowing that way I would really get, payback, and have to go to even the county jail where people there are the worst of the worst. It wasn't just like a local jail. But anyway, if I didn't go through that, I probably still would have went back after everything he did. I probably would have eventually dropped this case, and went back and tried to help him and save him and keep letting my empathy be the foolish actions that I wasn't waking up to, of who he really was and who he really is. And sitting in those that's jail, it truly, I mean, I had these like verses of the Bible coming in my head, and you guys, I was never religious. I was never, very into God. I never had that relationship with God. I've always believed in God, but I never had that relationship or anything. So as I'm sitting in this jail, I'm having these like Bible verses come in my head, and I never really read the Bible. I literally would very seldomly go and hear Bible verses if I went to church on a holiday or whatever, but I was not practicing in anything. I was literally just living life. And so having that come to me, and then after that was also when I started having all this spiritual stuff happening to me, and that is a whole different video. But where I'm going with this is it brought me into a relationship with God, and it brought me deeper into my faith, and I needed that. This was like the Father giving me my spanking. I'm like putting me in my place and saying, listen, this person is going to take your life if you don't stop entertaining the devil. And now that the finger was pointed at me and I was in the hot seat, I feel like that was God's gift as well, to make me obey, to make me be disciplined in staying away from them. Like, he had this person hurt me multiple times and I kept going back. So this was my time that he was saying, you need to listen. Like, listen to what I'm saying to you and pay attention. Stop being quick to talk and listen. And throughout the 19 months of court, this allowed me time to remove my emotions and not be emotionally led, but be spiritually fed. I fed my spirit with the truth. And this is why the truth shall set you free. Even if it made me look silly or goofy or whatever, I stayed in my authenticity. I was truthful throughout the case. I said, yes, it was dumb of me to go to his home and open the door for this to even happen to me. And I knew every single month that I went to court, and it didn't matter. I live in Chicago. It didn't matter if it was sunny or rainy or snowy or whatever, if it was dark outside. Every single time that I would drive to that courthouse an hour away every month to face my abuser, and literally it was like pulling a band-aid off a wound that just kept trying to heal, I would have the whole sky would literally open and there would be light just shining down. And I would talk to God the entire time that I drove, saying, to give me wisdom, to keep me calm, to keep me out of my emotions. I needed to present myself with who I really was. I needed to stop allowing this person to change my life. I mean, they literally, that's what happens when you're with a narcissist. They change who you are because they cannot do life themselves, so they take your life. So now going back to what abuse is a pattern. It is not a one-time incident that you are responding to a pattern, or you're responding to the psychological pressure that you are put through. You aren't crazy, you aren't unstable, you're not secretly abusive because you reached a breaking point that you were physically pushed to. It's a reaction to extreme pressure. And again, coming from your amygdala, which is your alert response, because you are put under such chronic stress that you can't even allow your logical thinking to take place and act in a correct manner that you normally would, that would actually reference your true character. Abuse is pattern, not a response. Now, before I have anyone making comments, coming in my inbox, whatever, messaging me, so forth, I want you to know I am one of accountability. I'm one of authenticity, and I do take full responsibility for allowing someone's actions to become my reactions. I am a grown adult. I should have known better. However, I was not logically thinking. And again, I loved this person so much, and I allowed my survival mode of life, and the toxicity that I knew as love as a child, I allowed that to become the actions that I embraced and encountered and endured, and so forth with this individual. Not that any of that is an excuse. Abuse is abuse. And for me, I literally just pulled his shoulder like this backwards for him to talk to me. And he had stated that I smacked him. So that was my reactive abuse form. No blood, no bruising, no nothing. But that was all he needed to say that I touched him and to file charges against me. Obviously, I was found not guilty, and they ripped him a new one in court, told him that this was a setup. This was something he did on purpose. I mean, the judge saw straight through it, thank God. But it's still stressful. You still have to pay. I paid $30,000 to have a lawyer represent me, and 19 months I spent in court. Of course, he had to play games and reschedule and do this because they use court as a form of control as well. So it just was a long, drawn out, crazy process. I have never in my life had an abusive relationship, nor have I abused anyone. And anybody can talk upon that has dated me in life or has even been married to me. My ex-husband is a police officer, so I would hope that he would have press the charges needed, or even we share children together, so take my children away if I'm this big abuser or whatever. So clearly, and this is the only toxic relationship I've ever had in my entire life, swear. But it was enough to give me a spiritual awakening, change who I am as a person. It made me realize that I was raised knowing what love is not and not what love is. So I was entertaining toxicity and people like this, people that are broken and abusive and users, losers, and abusers is what I say. And but I'm moving forward, and I would never entertain someone like that again. I will never be someone's savior again or anything in that nature. And so, I mean, yeah, I learned so much from it, and I wouldn't change any of it, even though it was extremely catastrophic and I have long-term PTSD and so forth from it. But I'm healing and every day is a new day. So if you are a victim of reactive abuse or even going through that court system right now, just know that this is God's way of protecting you, and making you realize that you deserve a true, deep love and love that matches the love that you give to others. You cannot save this individual, only one can save themselves. And you need to learn to love yourself more, because if you continue to drain your cup of love, you will have nothing to give. So how could you give someone something that you're expecting in return? You have to just let them go. And the truth, again, will always set someone free. This person is still an abuser. This person is still having legal issues. This person is still, being the monster that they are. But I truly believe that it is in great suffrage that you find great love. And I truly believe that the Lord had to show me the devil's, I had to see the devil's face to know that there is evil in this world. And I needed to be shown the darkness because I would never appreciate the light like I do now. I would never know the light and the love of heaven, and if I didn't embrace the hell that I went through. And I hope that that is your outcome as well, because I do have an aunt and a friend that I was friends with in high school that ended up losing their lives because they stayed, and when they got away, they tried to get away, their lives were taken. So not everyone is able to be called a survivor, because the truth is not everyone survives.